So we're going to have a bit more of a chat now about the Forest Industry Brigades, and I'm joined by Anthony Walsh, who's the manager of the Green Triangle Fire Alliance.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
the GTFA, as we would know it down in this part of the world, because it's an acronym for everything. And of course, Ian Hamley is back with us as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about the FIBs and in particular how they work. So firstly, how do they function? Because they're obviously industry brigades, so they're set up by the owners of plantations. They're not one big brigade, there's multiple of them. How do they work together, and how do you sort of play in that space as well?
Yeah, that's right. I guess a lot of people wouldn't know that Forest Industry Brigades, FIBs as we call them, are part of the CFA. In this part of the world there's 9 FIBs, and they form the Green Triangle Fire Alliance, and across this whole region on the South Australian side as well, there's around 320,000 hectares of plantation, both blue gum and pine, and our members manage 95% of that, so most of it. There's really been a long history of the plantation companies working together. Also a really long history with plantation companies, those FIBs working with volunteer brigades and FFMB. But the Green Triangle Fire Alliance formed about 4.5 or 5 years ago, and could just see that we needed to do a bit more. So there's always been that cooperation between companies, but we formed this group, and so there's a number of projects we've put together, and we're running collectively.
Now, Ian, I'm just watching the footage there. A lot of hose lay work going on, and that'll be familiar to some, but not to everybody. Tell us a little bit about the intricacies of the hose lay, and particularly how some of that was being rolled. It's not your usual roll on the bite.
Yeah, so it's rolled in a figure of 8 because, as you could see by the plantation there, very hard to bowl a hose out through that stuff there. So what the figure 8 does, it just allows you to walk the hose out, doesn't get tangled, you can quite easily get them together and keep progressing down to knock the fire out. And then you would have seen some different fittings being put in where we join the hose. So the gated wires that we use, and also what we call the water thief. And that just gives us options later on for mopping up if we need to put on a hose to go in a bit further, and probably reduce the hose to a 25mm hose so you're not dragging too much weight around. And also with the water thieves, that reduces again to a 19mm hose, so good for mopping up little spots and that, so you can just tap in as you go down the hose later to do that. And then at the end, it doesn't often get used in the plantation setting, but the sprinklers that we have, we can use them as well, so we can just tap into them. And it gives a 15-metre throw, so one at every join gives you the 30-metre coverage that you might need if you're putting in a control line, or if you've got sensitive areas, cultural sensitive areas, can't get machines in, maybe a sprinkler system set up would do the job for you.
Fighting a fire in a plantation, some people would say, gee, is that risky, walking all the way in with hose lays and all that sort of thing? But we're talking about small fires?
We're talking about to a low to moderate intensity type of fire, the same as we would if we were doing it with the volunteers out in the native forest or out in the farmlands. So no, you wouldn't go to a fully raging fire and walk in there. So you're low to moderate fires, and even if you can get onto lightning strikes quick, you could walk in with a hose lay, deal with it so it doesn't get big and things like that. So.